today?
Oh, great. It's been a great day.
It's been a great day. Well, Brandy, thank you so much for joining me for this very exciting webinar. I have been just kind of thinking about how are we going to condense all these important questions and thoughts and all of that in like really small 45 minutes. So I kind of focused on like what someone that's not really familiar with strengths and specifically focusing on parents. So I guess that's where we're going to go. But before we get started, let's do an introduction. So my name is Yusra. I'm the founder and CEO of My.ai. My.ai is a platform that helps high school students figure out their strengths and then what's the career path that's best fit for them. So we help them with that journey of navigating through that, I would say, one of the most important decisions of their life. So yeah, and then here we have Brandy Schade. And Brandy, I want you to introduce yourself and, because I know you do so many things.
Yes.
But in
and
today's
things have recently changed, so I know that's a bit confusing. So
yeah.
I am now the COO of Onyx Unlocks, which is an executive leadership consulting firm. And it recently consumed my Strengthology platform, which is what you and I, how you and I know each other through. So the Onyx Unlocks, the executive leadership consulting business, has a couple of different things that we provide to leadership teams. And one of them is the Strengths to Strategy programs, which is what we'll be focused on today.
Awesome. So Brandy, you have been working with strengths for how long now, exactly?
Man, it's probably 10 years now.
10 years at this
I've
point.
been working with strengths. Yeah, it started off in corporate, and I literally got the book from my brother and thought this was cool. So I gave it to all my friends and family, and I had them take strengths. I thought, oh, this is amazing. I should have my corporate team take strengths. So we did it in there. And that's when I got really encouraged to continue to do it. I saw the impact I was having on people's lives. And so I started building up a program and then eventually turned that into an actual proprietary system and have been taking it out to corporations ever since.
That's amazing. So when you and I met for the first time, our conversation was all about strengths. And because I took the Clifton Strengths Finder, I think like maybe 3 or 4 years prior to meeting you. But I didn't really like get into like really understanding how it works, right? I got my results, I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's really cool. That kind of sounds like me. But I had no idea what that meant. And then we had our first kind of engagement conversation where you were explaining and you went through all of my strengths. And that moment really, I remember I was just like, wow, I gotta sit down. I gotta talk to this lady, because everything that I thought about my brain that was wrong, it was not wrong. I'm just wired differently. And I think that's what got me thinking. And I think we met that same week. I called you and we were like, we're gonna meet and we're gonna talk about this. And you went over and I was like, what should I do for my career? And this is like me after my master's, right?
Yes.
So, and at that moment, and I never articulated this to you, but I was like, if I had only done this earlier.
Sure.
If I had only done this early, I would have saved so much time. I probably would have saved so much money and a lot of frustration, like going from job to job to job, going from classes, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. If I had just focused on me and my strengths instead of worrying about like what other people are doing, what people are telling me to do.
Yes.
There's a lot of careers out there that are excellent careers, but every time I try to put myself into that, I just felt like an outsider didn't fit in. So understanding my strengths definitely helped me with that. And so that's why the core of my treks is to meet that student while they're in high school.
Yes.
And help them understand, how their brain works, how they make their decisions, how they prioritize things. And so that they can understand. And because I do think to a certain extent, it's kind of like a muscle. The more you know your strengths, the more you get to practice them, the better you feel and the better, I guess, you can see them kind of pop out in different areas.
Yeah, and you also have to try them out in a
Yeah.
variety of different ways. And they may light you up and work in some ways over here, but over here you're like, yeah, it's just not for me. There's also not just your strengths that you're exercising, but just sheer interest of a specific topic or area of life. And I think over time, as we iterate using our strengths over and over and over again, we start to go, oh, this is where I really love to use them. And I love the impact that they're having here. So this is where I'm choosing to take my career path. And then it changes sometimes and we go
Yeah.
do something completely different. But I think we should never discredit our background of how we got to where we are today, because it does shape us, and everything we have done does contribute to, what we're doing to push through the future and into the future with our strengths. So I think it's extremely important. And I had a similar experience where I was like, man, if I just would have known my strengths, I would have done something a bit different, because I was headed down a direction of using the skill that I had. I was really good at math. And so my entire career trajectory was based on the fact that I was good at math, but it wasn't considering a whole bunch of other aspects of my personality. And bringing those into that conversation of, yes, you're good at math, but you're also good at this, this, and this. So what does that in totality look like for you?
Yeah, and I think a lot of students, a lot of brilliant students will go with that. Because I hear them say all the time, "Oh, I'm really good in biology, so I think I should be a
Mhm.
doctor." And
Right.
and and that's not how that decision should be made.
Correct.
Because I mean, you're good at biology because you're probably a really smart person, and it comes to you naturally, but that's not necessarily that should not determine if you should go into sciences as a career. You should go into the medical field as a career.
Yeah.
um,
Or you can say, look, I know I want to go into the medical field, but then you're like, in what way? Because you could be
Mhm.
a researcher, you could be a hands-on surgeon, you could be, someone that leads programs or does outreach to the communities. Like, there's so many ways to contribute to that particular space. And we need people that of all different shapes and sizes in those spaces in order to make those industries good. So it's not just about which space or industry, but in
Mhm.
what way am I going to impact that arena?
Right, right. Now, I want to kind of step back and I want to ask you this question. If I'm a parent, Brandy, uh, and I don't know anything about strengths, and my focus is that I have a child that's a brilliant student, and I want them to go and become I want them to go and do what they really want. But at the same time, like, I'm encouraging them to go hopefully in the medical field because I've always wanted to be a doctor, and they're really smart and they can do it very easily. Why do I need to know what my child's strengths are? And
Yeah, I think we have to be really careful about not living vicariously through our children, trying to make them into what we wanted, and having them do what we wished we would have done. I think we all have to be super careful about that with our kids. We need to look at them as their own entity, and they have their own desires and their own strengths and their own interests, and kids will tell you very young what they want to be. And we don't listen so often. We just don't listen because we don't want that for them. We wouldn't want that for ourselves. We are so scared that they're making the wrong choice. Maybe it looks bad on us, whatever it is. But what we need to do is give them the space to explore that arena and explore things around that, because I just can't tell you how many times I have been in a situation where the kid will tell you exactly what they want, and that's what they want, and they know that's what they want, or at least where they want to start. They've been dreaming about that their whole life. Maybe they haven't verbalized that, but they'll share with you, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to have the impact. So I think as a parent, we really need to listen to that and explore that with them, and continue to ask them, okay, in what way? How would you like to do that? Where, what is so gratifying to you about that? And then help them actually have some experiences in that space to further color, the picture they have painted to see if that's the full picture for them or not. But we don't need to be afraid of, what they're expressing a desire in. We need to help them explore, not only that, but, expose them to other things as well. So that's why I love your program, Yusra, because you're exposing them to so many things and you're getting them hands-on experience and you're getting them, on into companies and actually seeing what has happened in order for them to make that decision. And I actually got that when I was a kid. I was, wanting to explore a couple of different, of course, math routes. And one of them was actuarial science. I actually got to go to the insurance company and talk to the actuary and see what they did and hear, about all the things about it, to see if that's something that I wanted to do or not. And that is so informing. It really helps you make a good decision for yourself about, where to even just get started.
Yeah, I definitely two things I wanted to kind of pick on here is that I'm actually seeing I see parents, because every parent is genuinely interested in making sure that their child has a great future, right?
Yes.
That's because
A,
they
and a
care.
better future than they
Yeah,
had. I think
yeah,
that's universal. Yeah,
yeah.
for the
So
most part.
that's the intention, is always to help them, because parents are coming with a lot of wisdom. They have gone through that path. They
Yeah.
understand, how difficult it can be. And a lot of, the careers that seem to be more promising in today's time, and probably in I think we're in a very difficult and a different world now with AI coming in, and there's a lot of fear around like what jobs are going to be there, what jobs
Mm-hmm.
are going to be eliminated, right? And it's like almost every single area, every single industry is getting tapped with AI, and they're saying, oh, that job is not going to exist anymore. Is it going to be relevant? So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, Brandy, there's like a lot of fear that you see in students and in parents, like, oh, it's probably better to just stay within STEM and study something with
Mm-hmm.
technology, because technology is about to replace everyone. So it's better to just go into that. So a
Yeah.
lot of students are not even wanting to, explore anything, because there's a lot of fear. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just coming from
Mm-hmm.
parents, it's also coming from students. I don't know if you see that in your area as well, right? Even
Yeah,
as
I always see that where there is a lack of knowledge. You
Mhm.
always see fear where there's a lack of knowledge. So if anybody that's listening to this has a fear, acknowledge the fear and then go educate yourself around the fear, and you'll feel far less fear because you'll feel fully educated in that space and you won't feel so vulnerable about making decisions in that space.
Correct, correct. And I think one thing that I think about is there is a lot of unknown, and there's nobody out there that can tell you exactly what jobs are going to exist, what jobs are not going to exist, because we're just in that, the most, I guess you can say, the unknown space right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really tell anyone that, oh yeah, this for sure is going to be gone in the future, and you should not study that. I think, and that's where strengths comes in, because instead of like focusing on, oh, this specific area, we can focus on like building the skills that give us basically transfer you should be able to transfer it from one area to the other. If you focus on developing those skills, you would be able to easily navigate through that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to get at is that in the age of AI, it's now more important to be a human being, and to know what values you offer, because let's be honest, we're going into the world of unpredictability. You might start with a career and you might be changing that. As a matter of fact, a lot of students already are like, okay, I'm probably going to do this for a little bit and I might switch to something later on as well, right? So that's what I see. I mean, I don't know if you kind of
Yeah, I just think we just don't know. I mean, if you would have said, when um, Intuit or any other accounting software came along, people might have said, "Oh, the accountants are gone," and they're not. And they may do things differently now, and it may require a different skill set, but the function of itself is not gone. Where there's probably other roles. I was trying to think of one as you were talking that has been completely eliminated, right? We don't even have that thing anymore at all in existence, or it might have been like completely diminished. I mean, we could take COVID for an example. I mean, no one would have predicted COVID No
Mhm.
one would have predicted all the changes that were made during COVID. I remember I had a guy looking for a facility management position during COVID, and I was like, are you crazy? One, there's no facilities open, and two, every facility manager out there is looking for a job in that arena. And he had other skill sets, so I was like, look, let's leverage your other skill sets to get you a job. So I think the underlying message to all of that is we need to be flexible, we need to be open, we need to be dynamic in our approach, because we need to just pour our heart in and go for what we love, but we also need to look at the demands of the market and the future demands of the market, and we need to gauge as well as we can, but we also need to understand that things are going to happen that are completely out of our control. And when that time comes, because it will come to every single person listening to this, when that time comes, we have to figure it out. We have to figure out how to pivot and what to do and what else to get into and where else we can use our strengths and our talents and our skills, and just know that it's not hopeless. There is another place. We could all have 10 different careers and that are exciting and that are
Mhm.
interesting. We just get the opportunity to do one, two, or three of those throughout our lifetime. But there's many things that we could pour ourselves into that we would get a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction around. It doesn't have to be the one, the
Yeah,
one thing.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, a lot of people, like for example, medical practitioners, doctors, they spend a lot of time studying a very specific area,
Hmm.
specializing in that. That's separate from maybe having careers that are more that are easily transferable, right? So if you're going into business, you can also go into technology.
Hmm.
There's a lot of flexibility around that too. But either way, I think what's really important and what MyTrax is trying to focus on is helping students understand their strengths, because when you know what your core is, what you're good at, what feels good to you, the areas that you'll apply yourself in, you'll be able to see which strengths are the ones that are most prevalent, and it's going to give you that boost, and you're going to feel like, okay, I'm on the right track.
Hmm.
Because I feel like, Brandy, one of the most important things in life is that feeling when you feel like you're on the right track, right?
Yeah.
Because you start something and you're unsure, but then something happens and you're like, ooh, I like this. And that's probably your strength being activated. That's your strength saying, like, you like this, you're good at this, and this is made for you. That's what strengths be,
Hmm.
that's it. That's what it
Hmm.
feels like to a student, right? A good example is, for example, my niece, right? So I believe she's in seventh grade right now, and she's always been a very smart, very competitive student, and she speaks really well. She's able to articulate her thoughts since she was like 4 years old when I met her. She's in debate club. So she started debate club, and I think she absolutely loves it, and she's winning rounds on and on and on and on, because I think she has competition, and she probably has communication as a strength. And it's so that tells you these are the type of electives, the type of things that you can do and know where your strengths are, and that
Hmm.
tells you what areas you should go into.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily about I'm going to study biology. It's
Yeah.
more like, where do I get to like use these skills that I'm really good at and I'm the
Yeah.
best in the room with, right? So
And,
that's
and
that.
and something that's very fascinating about what you're saying is a student could do an activity like that and think, oh my gosh, I should be a lawyer that goes in and debates, these cases because of this, and this. And then they get into the job of being a lawyer in this arena. And because there's this other element that they didn't predict, they hate it. And
Mhm.
so when you know your strengths and you know all of them from 1 to 34, at some point, you can start with top 5 and then grow into the top 10 and then grow into all 34. But when you see that, it's harder to get it wrong, because you're like, oh, I know I would like this aspect about being a lawyer that's up there debating the case, but I would hate this aspect.
Mhm.
And because this thing I'm doing over here doesn't have that, that's why I like it, because it has these things, but not this. And that allows you to make way better decisions as well, because then you're getting specific, and people don't realize how specific you need to get it right.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So I want to give you an example of a student. So we have a student, and her number one strength was empathy, And I think she had relator, learner, positivity, and I'm not sure. I forgot the fifth one. Um, she started with us, and she was interested in studying the brain, and she wanted to go and become a psychiatrist when she started out. She was like, "This is what I want to do." Now, going through the kind of understanding her strengths and also
Mm-hmm.
understanding what it takes to be a psychiatrist, and you know where I'm trying to get at,
Yes.
she
Yes.
very quickly realized that that's probably not the right path for her because she has
Mm-hmm.
so much empathy. And
Yes.
as a psychiatrist, you're continuously listening to people, like an appointment after appointment after appointment.
That
And
are
these
going through
are,
severe hardship. Yes.
yeah, it's very difficult. And as an empath, I guess you can say, right, being number one strength, um, uh, it can be very difficult and
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming because you're taking all of that in and there's no outlet. So you're
Yeah.
just in it all the
And
time.
not only was she empathy, she
Hmm.
wasn't empathy restorative, where she likes to empathize with problems. She was empathy positivity,
Positivity, yeah.
which means she needed floods of, good feelings coming in as well as pushing good feelings out. So you make such a good point with how specific it can get in choosing the right path for yourself.
Yeah. So what worked out for her is, or at least the track that she's on right now, is she's switching to neurology.
Mm,
Neurology is more focused on diagnosing like diseases like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, right? And not necessarily about listening to the kind of the story of a person
mm-hmm,
and taking that. And it's a very it's you're still working with the brain.
mm-hmm.
It's just a different format of
Yeah,
it.
you're still
And
helping people. Mm-hmm,
Um, but yeah, I think that it's a really good example because you still, she's still on the track for medicine. She's still studying the brain. She's still very closely working with, psychiatric disorders, but it's a completely different track. And
yes.
that's why knowing your strengths is so, so important. I mean, technically you can find this out later on, but the earlier you know, the the more quickly you have the option of
Yes.
actually sitting down in front of a neurologist and seeing what they have to do.
Yeah.
There's a huge demand. Neurology is an absolutely,
Mm-hmm,
um, you know, we need neurologists. There's not enough neurologists out there. So it's great that she was able to figure that out, and now she can
mm-hmm,
work towards it, get an internship in that area, and really explore it. And maybe this is her thing, maybe this is not her thing, right? Because
mm-hmm,
as you go through this, you have the flexibility, you have the time to learn, and you can make that decision for yourself. So,
mm-hmm.
so that's it's a really good example. We should
Yeah,
probably
yeah, yeah.
talk
I think
about.
I think to summarize what you said, I mean, you're increasing your ability to get it right sooner rather than later, because I think we eventually can get it right if we keep trying, but it's just a matter of like, if we can get it right, clear back here, we can enjoy so much more of our life instead of continuously getting it wrong and wrong and wrong. And then finally one day going, okay, I finally found something I love. It's just so much more rewarding to get it right sooner than later.
Nobody is having these conversations.
Mm,
Very, very few people are having these conversations. And it's not that the people don't want to have these conversations, it's just that parents and counselors don't always have the resources, right?
sure.
There are so many careers out there, and but some people don't know and understand strengths. They don't know how this system works. They don't have the tools. So that's why this is such a great tool to understand
Mm-hmm.
people and help students early enough, because college is $100,000 decision, right? I
Yes.
think at a minimum, actually, at this point, at a minimum, it's a huge decision, and it's also the most important time of your life, right? Because everybody is focused on building a career, so you really want to be on the right path. And a lot of the times, students are in 12th grade and they're still undecided, and they feel the pressure to just make some decision. And I mean, that's what we're trying to solve. Is we're trying to solve for having these conversations early enough, because it sets the structure, it sets the foundation for a healthier mindset about your future.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, if you start ninth grade, or if you, even if in eighth grade, if you already can see yourself building a path, your own trek towards whatever you want to be, you're more likely to stick to that. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a game plan, it's gonna be difficult, because creating a great game plan every single time, or thinking that you might have something and then feeling lost about it, is a very difficult thing. Because I'm speaking from personal experience, because my number one strength, you already know this, is ideation. I had so many ideas. I was like, I can be a lawyer, I can go into business, I can do this, I can do that. I was just confused, but I had positivity in me, so it kept pushing me. I was confused and I was pushing myself in all different areas. There were times where I was like, my goodness, this is not working out. But then, you know, I have learner as my number two strength. So ideation, learner, woo, positivity, and intellection. So a lot of ideas, a lot of positivity, excitement for learning new things and wanting to almost try every career out there. As exciting as that sound, it was a very exhausting life, because not knowing, what path is going to actually earn me a paycheck, right, was actually
Yes.
kind of tiring, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
I didn't come from a rich family. My end goal was to be able to, first of all, pay off the immense amount of college debt that I had,
Yeah.
and then be in a career where I can actually
Mm-hmm.
kind of stay. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you might know, people that have ideation, they have a lot of ideas. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't like what they're doing, they're gonna get ideas about leaving and go a different track.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's what.
I think your story is actually interesting to share here because, when I met you, you were still kind of trying to find it, right? You were still trying to find the direction. You knew what you were interested in, but you didn't know how to apply it into the business world, let's say, to make the money. And you knew you wanted to, but you didn't want to give up on what you believed in and your passions and how you wanted to help people as well. And so I remember looking at your strengths, just going, oh my God, she's a product person. Like that, to me, it was obvious what you were because of the versatility you needed, because of your ability to market and be strategic and to negotiate and to understand the tech side and understand the user impact side, and the ability to manage multiple people and to be able to intake, information from this part of the business, this part of the business, this part of the business, and calibrate that to come out to a meaningful result of how to go to market with it. It just seems so obvious to me when I looked at your strengths. But I think, obviously it's obvious because I've worked with so many people in so
Mhm.
many different professions, and I have seen what is rewarding and what is not rewarding to certain types of people. So I remember, we probably talked about a multitude of things, but that was one of them that came
Yep.
out really strong. And so, I mean, it just so happened that we had a product position open
Yep.
at the company I was working at. And I said, hey, why don't you try to interview
Yep.
for it? Let's see. And of course, you were like such a good fit for it. And they were like, oh my God, where have you been all our lives? And they brought you on and hired you. And you just did amazing work there. And you learned so much. And you did such a good job. And it was such a good stint. And it might not have been where you ended up ultimately, but I think you got a background in how to go to market with products, and
Mhm.
that is what led you to running
Yep.
your own product and taking that to market, because then you said, okay, I'm going to take what I learned over here, take what I studied, in my education, and then, I'm going to drive, since you have entrepreneurial strengths as well, and I've been telling you for a long time to go the entrepreneurial route whenever you're ready, because you just have it, right? The entrepreneurial, it takes a lot of grit to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So you have to have the vision, you have to have the stamina, you have to have the confidence that you can figure it out. And so finally you said, look, I'm going to give this a go. It came out of nowhere too. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I guess we're going. And here you are today,
Yeah.
running your own company with your own product, helping people, figuring it out. And none of that would have happened at the time it happened had we not had the conversation we had, and had we not tried out the product space and so on and so forth. So I think that's what we're saying here, is that the sooner you can have these conversations and the sooner you can figure it out with somebody who has a lot of experience and knows a lot about strengths, and also has a lot of exposure to a lot of different career paths, and has a large network, then you can, explore and try some things out and see, is this the right path for me? And hopefully it's, has a happy ending like your story did.
Yeah, and there are some people, Brandy, that just know, like, from
Yes.
like you say, right?
Yeah.
So my sister, for example, she knew while she was in high school that she wanted to become
Mm-hmm.
a doctor of physical therapy. She knew that. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't change. She always wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
that. She's still doing that today. So it's interesting. And my question is, like, are there certain strengths that give you basically more focus and clarity versus others? Because I feel like I was blessed with very unique strengths that kind of, I don't want to say discouraged, but like I didn't have like that straight path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for you, you have multiple strengths that are interested in multiple areas. So even if you had one strength that was interested in multiple areas as a standalone strength, it would be challenging to find which way do I actually want to go. You have high intellect, which means you needed tons of intellect, and you needed intellectual stimulation in a multitude of ways, not just one way. You have ideation, which is abstract and eccentric and creative, but it also has 1,000 ideas coming in. You have learner, which is, I want to learn how to do this, and I want to learn how to do that, and I want to learn how to do this other thing, and I want to get a degree in this and this and this and this, and I want to have this job and this job and this job because I want to learn how to do it, master it, and then go learn something else. So you have, just 3 off the top of my head in your top 5 that drag you and pull you to all
I see.
kinds of different interests and different things. Where, someone who's just got, something more like significance, competition focus, they just know they want to go be competitive somewhere, and they want a competition. They just got to find the right competition, and there they go. They're just like focal pointed on that. This is what I love, and they just ride that out. So it just depends on which strengths we have. It depends on what combination. It depends on, like, how many of what do we have as our primary: relationship building, execution, thinking, influencing, and then, diving deeper into that of, okay, now that I know I'm even in this arena, like what next? But for someone like you could operate over here and do great. You could operate over here and do great. You could go over here and do great. Go this company. You're so flexible in what you could be successful at, and you enjoy the process. That makes it really difficult for someone like you to know, what is it should I do? What we do know about someone like you is you need something that's going to intellectually stimulate you for a long period of time. It has to be a very deep well of learning. Has to be
Yeah.
super challenging in order for you to stay engaged in that space.
Yeah, definitely true. I'm just wondering, I think we've talked about this before, but you said that achiever is the most common strength that you see across the board, right?
Yes. Yeah, achiever is I think it's achiever. So we have, yes, it's achiever. That's the top strength that you'll find in a person, like across the world, I think it's
33%. I
33
think.
million, 33 million people across the world, or 34 million or something like that. Yeah, it's like 31% of those people have
Okay.
achiever as a top 5 strength. Yeah.
Okay. And for me, I think it's like my number, I don't know, 26, or it's like way
Uh-huh.
which makes a lot of sense because I'm always ideating. So the execution part is kind of like pushed
Mm-hmm.
down a little bit. It makes sense, right? If you're always
Yes.
generating ideas, how are you going to complete tasks?
Yes. Yes. If you're
But
always thinking, and
mhm.
thinking, and your world is moving. I mean, you're over there thinking and it's moving for you, but out here you might have been sitting there for 3 hours,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you don't
exactly.
even realize it because you're having so much fun thinking about things.
Yeah, and I think I might have pushed my achiever or bumped it up a little bit by being a
Mm,
product person, because
mm,
the mindset of progress over perfection has really
mm,
encouraged me. Like, let's get this delivered.
mm-hmm.
Let's finish this for today, and then we can, work back at it later
Yes.
on. So because I've always been a procrastinator. I think a lot of the students are procrastinators. And back in the day when I was young and in high school, procrastination was a word that was like, oh my God, procrastination is really
Mm,
bad. But now neuroscience tells us that procrastination happens because our brain wants to build enough stress for us to want to
sure.
act upon it, right?
Mm,
There are some people that are like, oh, this paper is due at the end of the month. I'm going to finish it today.
that was
Or
me.
that was you. So
Oh
what
yeah, I don't
what's
want the stress of it not getting done before the end of the month, for sure.
what strength of yours was pushing you to do that? Which one was
It's the
that?
discipline strength, which is
Discipline.
completely opposite of ideation. If you look at on the spectrum where ideation sits from discipline, they're on the exact opposite
Yeah.
ends of the
It's
scale.
it's 33 for me out of
Yeah,
34.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Ideation is exceptionally low for me, while discipline is very
Hmm.
high for me. But discipline is the one that just, I don't know why, it just can't stand being late on things. It can't stand, it doesn't want to be on time. It wants to be ahead of time. It just creates so much stress for us to think about all the things that could come up and we couldn't get to and deliver what we want to deliver, on time because of these other things. So we create the space with the discipline to make sure that things get done ahead of time versus on time.
And that's interesting because, Brandy, I feel like students that are very successful academically,
Mm-hmm.
most of them have these strengths like discipline, consistency, um, achiever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of what schools is all about, it's all about
Mm-hmm.
getting things done, playing
Yep.
that game, right? You're
Yep.
given an assignment, complete it. You're given an
Right.
assignment, complete it.
Yeah. So
And
if your body's responding really strongly to dopamine and your dopamine is associated with get things done, you're just
mhm.
going to enjoy the process of getting things done towards a deadline. Which that is the current structure of school. Not all education, but the normal education in the US as we know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, because for me, when I was given a project, I was the person who would just ideate as to
Mm,
what I want to do for literally a month, and then
okay.
3 days before it was due,
I
I would be
see.
like, okay, now
Yeah.
I have to put it together. It was
Yeah.
stressful,
Yeah.
no doubt, but then I somehow thrived in that space of stress.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. I
Yeah.
think that if because there were times where I was like, okay, I'm giving this assignment, and it was painful when I did it like very last minute last time, but I'm gonna start this today, and I was not able to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
could not get myself to do it. I have even tried to set myself up with false deadlines, right? You probably hear this all the time. People set their clocks a little
Mm-hmm.
bit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the kind of those are my people.
Mm.
Because they're like because they want to make sure that they don't mess this up, right? Like, and
Yeah.
positivity, I'm sure there's probably some science around the positivity tends to have they feel like they have more time than they actually do because they're so
Sure.
optimistic, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they tend to struggle with time a lot too. So
Yeah. And if you had somebody, I'd like to make it clear that if you had somebody with positivity and discipline, they would not struggle with time, even though they had positivity. So we do have to look at the combination of strengths and where on the spectrum the strengths sit. Now, is it likely that discipline is low for positivity? Probably. But also discipline is low in general, right? We only see that 7% of the time in a top 5 in people. So, the sense of getting something done way ahead of time is not a normal thing
yeah.
for most people across society. And I wanted to comment on the part where you were talking about how you will ideate, all the way through the month until the deadline. It's funny to think about my process up against yours, because mine was always more of an execution delivery of what if I had to turn it in today? What would it look like? So every day I was delivering so that every day I could turn it in. But my learner was, but I'm going to work on it for a month to get it better. So I am delivering the completed project over and over and over again in my mind, making it better and better and better. So by day 30, it's like I could have delivered it 15 days ago, but I'm still delivering an improved I don't know, uh, what do you call that when you're able to push it? A product that you're able to push out. Anyway, a deliverable,
Yeah.
set of something. So just a completely different mechanism, happening in my brain versus your brain.
Yeah. And so I think, that's why I think it makes sense, because it's not even just about figuring out which career paths fits which set of strengths.
Yeah.
It's also understanding, because from what I remember and from what I hear right now, going from eighth grade to ninth grade is a huge shift.
Mm,
Like, you really go from,
yeah.
being like, in a space where you're actually relaxed, you're comfortable, to bam, comes ninth grade, and you have to select
Mm,
electives. You got to figure out what you want to do, and you have to, be involved in sports, and you have to. There's a lot of pressure, and I think it's a really important and a very good time to know your strengths at that point.
mm-hmm,
And the reason behind that is because if you know your strengths, you have a little bit more, you have a lot more actually confidence in what you're selecting for your electives, right? And you're not making um, decisions just by guessing that this is the right thing to do. You're making
mm-hmm.
decisions on, this is what's going to fit well with how I work and how my brain works, right? I
Yeah. And
think.
I will tell you, Yusra, I got exposed to computer programming when I was 12, and
Okay.
I was gifted. I could just program. I don't know. I didn't have to learn syntax. I could just figure it out, and I just knew how to program. But I never saw that skill again until college. So I forgot, because
Mhm.
I didn't revisit computer programming at age 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, probably even 19.
Mhm.
So I didn't remember that that was something that I loved and I was good at, and I would have liked to have done far more of that in college. But I did have math classes, all through that time. And so I knew I was good at math. So I find it interesting that I chose something that I knew I could be successful at because of the experiences that I'd had. But when I got into college and I went down the math route, I remember halfway in, I said, I really would like to pivot and I'd like to do information systems management. Because I somehow in there got re-exposed to computers, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot. I'm really good at, programming naturally. And I have this tendency to think about structures and technology and, all the things. So I think there's an element of what you guys do that allows children and high school students to be re-exposed to different things that they might not be getting exposed to in
Mhm.
school, that would remind them that, oh yeah, this exists, even though you're not getting exposure here, and you're really good at it, and it's something you should explore as you go into college so they could make better college decisions for themselves around their degree.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of our students, we did a webinar together, and right after we were done with the webinar, she messaged me. She's like, "I've never done anything like this, and I absolutely loved it." She's like, "I want to do more of this. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have more
Yes.
opportunities,
Yes.
and and that's the thing. These are very unique opportunities that we try to
Yeah.
bring forward for the students. We had
Mm-hmm.
a very, students have gotten the opportunity to speak on stage and
Mm-hmm.
present their ideas through this,
Mm-hmm.
because public speaking is, I get, one of the biggest fears in the world, and but there are some students that don't find it challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and the earlier you experience it, the more
Mm-hmm.
you get to practice, and that's a really valuable skill.
Yes,
Because
and I think to your
yeah.
point, I got to do a, presentation about the inner ear when I was in high school, and I loved teaching. I had never gotten to teach before, and I loved it, but I didn't want to go be a teacher and, get on a teacher salary. I was like, that's just not for me. So I never explored
Mhm.
teaching again because the only career I knew around teaching was teaching. And so it was fascinating to me to get into the business world and see that I could become a consultant, and
Mhm.
I could teach again, but I could make the kind of money that I wanted to make teaching.
Yeah.
So, I think that, with a program like Trex, I could have known that. I could have known, oh no, you can still be a teacher and you can get paid really well to do teaching. You're just going to do it in a different way for a different group of people.
Absolutely. I think, and that's one thing that I'm very, very careful about when it comes to
Hmm.
students, because students have, they're just starting to think about careers. They haven't explored what are all the different options out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if a student comes in and they're like, oh, I really want to become an actor, right? Now, numbers don't lie, right? The statistics and the chances of someone to become a successful actor, it's a full-time dedication and understanding that
Mm-hmm.
it could be a very struggling long-term career. So we ask the difficult questions that
Yes.
their parents might have already asked them, and the conversation didn't go well,
Mm-hmm.
or they have not asked them because they're
Mm-hmm.
just afraid. They don't want to, they don't want to discourage their child of doing something that they're actually passionate about. So that conversation carefully is curated, and where the student is thinking through, okay, what do
Mm-hmm.
I actually like about acting?
Mm-hmm.
Is it me being on the stage? Is
Mm-hmm.
it the fact that there is creativity in it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
really digging deeper into it, and then see how we can maybe pick and separate it, because
Mm-hmm.
no one career is just,
Yeah.
one thing. There's multiple things involved in
Yes.
it, you know? So we talk through that. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, you have students that are like, whoa, technically, I would really, really enjoy advertising, because
Mm-hmm.
this is like creativity, and a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
creative side folks, students will want to go in more creative areas. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the first only things that they have experienced is acting, is because of drama club in school.
Yeah.
So they haven't really explored the area. So we really try to dive deep and really
Mm-hmm.
have those conversations and talk them through, and present
Mm-hmm.
them with statistics.
Yes.
Tell them the numbers that, hey,
Yeah.
you're going to graduate with, this much in debt, and this is what your first year salary, your second
Mm-hmm.
year salary is. The highest salary that a person with this career
Mm-hmm.
makes is this, and this is the lifestyle. Is that
Mm-hmm.
something that you're comfortable with? So when you said teaching,
Yeah.
right, and becoming a teacher, and you said very clearly, like, hey, I wanted to make more money than that, right? I have a lot of students that will say, like, I really want to do this, but it's more important for me
Mm-hmm.
to actually live the lifestyle, or be at the same lifestyle that my parents are at. Like, I don't want to go
Mm-hmm.
below that, right?
Yes.
My parents are doing really
Yeah.
well, and I want to keep it at it or make better than
Yeah.
that. So
And you have people that say the opposite. They say, I don't care at all about money. All I want to do is contribute to this particular cause.
mhm,
You have people on both sides of that fence. It's neither right nor wrong, here nor there. We just want to help them navigate that, and so that no matter which path they choose, they're successful in that and have a successful life and lifestyle, in an alignment to what they want.
absolutely. And the thing is that our job as educators is to present and tell them what this path is going to look like,
Mm-hmm.
because there are people, like, for example, I'll tell you, had a student that was belief and positivity,
Mm-hmm.
very much interested in, like, going in and, like, helping uh become an educator for people in need in, developing countries and all that stuff. So, and he was like, I want to be a teacher, and I want to be a teacher in developing nations.
Mm.
I want to give back. Belief,
Yes.
and very
Yes.
positive. He was like, I'm going to be traveling the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be doing all these wonderful things, and it's going to be exciting. I get to learn culture. I get to learn this. I
Mm-hmm.
get to learn that. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to do that when I was young too. I wanted to teach, and I wanted to travel
Yeah.
the world. So we really had to pick and understand, because and what we got from that conversation is that his belief was that he wanted to be in education, and he wanted to help those that are underserved.
Yes.
And that was actually separate from traveling. It
Yeah.
didn't have to be with traveling. It wasn't paired
Right.
with traveling. So having that conversation, because somebody that has belief, and people that have belief, I think my dad has belief, they, whatever they believe,
It's core.
they're
Yep.
it's written, what do you call it,
Mm-hmm.
written in stone, right?
Yeah.
So that's their core. They don't
Yeah.
budge from that.
No.
It's really difficult for them to, and I respect that strength so much,
Mm-hmm.
because it is people like them that make this world a better place,
Mm-hmm.
because they believe in doing the right thing, because they're
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about, oh, I want to be very financially comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, I want
Yep.
to do something, right?
Yeah. And if you're somebody with belief and you're listening to this, look at nonprofit work,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what you can do. You get to live out a very meaningful life, helping others and contributing to the community in a greater way. while still making money. You know, I think there's a misconception out there that people that work at nonprofits don't make any money. I'm like, no, they make money. They just might not, you know, you might give more of
Yes.
your salary back to the organization in order for the organization to be more successful with the people they're trying to help. But you make enough money to, you know, live a normal life here in the US. So, you know, if it's something that you're interested in, I would highly recommend you check it out. You know,
Yeah.
and people don't even realize, like, if you get into nonprofits and you want to be a leader or take a leadership position, there's leadership positions in nonprofits. You can
Absolutely.
become a CEO, a CFO, you know, a CMO, a COO in, you know, a nonprofit arena or nonprofit space. And there's global nonprofits that you can work at. So
The younger generation is very much interested in giving back and
mhm,
helping the community, and that's actually nonprofits are an excellent area for students to be
mhm,
involved, so
yeah.
they can develop that skill early enough and they
Mhm,
can see themselves in leadership positions and be giving back to the community. So it's a wonderful opportunity for the students out there. So there's tremendous
mhm,
opportunities in nonprofits.
mhm.
I think we're almost out of time, and I know
Okay.
you have a class to get to,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I appreciate this so much. If is there anything else that you want to add before we close? And this is just for the parents that are going to be listening to this.
Oh, closing words of wisdom. Um, I would say if I was speaking to a parent and they were asking for my advice around how to help their child and best invest in them, to one, strongly consider a program like Trex, because I went through that. It was very, very helpful for me when I was in high school to go through a program like this. But also just listen to your children, listen, because you know them as this and you've seen them grow in this way. But as they are developing into their junior high years and high school years, they are developing into a full blown adult with their own ideas and their own core beliefs and their own desires. And the more that you listen and be open to seeing something different that you've never seen before in them, the more success you're going to have with them, because you will be able to honor and respect who they're becoming as their own entity. And then you'll be able to more effectively support that by giving them the opportunities or the chances, or helping them, you know, just sort of lift them off in a certain way and let them go, and let them try out and discover and make their own decisions. And the more that you can make that shift as a parent from being a parent to you're my responsibility to, okay, now you're your own responsibility before they get into college, the more successful that child is going to be. And I know that's what every parent wants that's listening to this, is for their child to be successful. So I would just encourage that mindset as you're trying to make the shift of letting them go and letting them, you know, take their own path into the world. And, you know, you get to take the seat of sit back and grab some popcorn and watch the show. And hopefully it's a good show, and hopefully they're highly successful and they're happy, and they want to come back and visit you for Thanksgiving, you know?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, Brandy. I appreciate it. I do think that every parent should know their strengths and every student should know their strengths, because the communication that needs to happen in these years can be
Hmm.
so much smoother, so much better.
For sure.
Teenagers are growing brains. Parents are trying to communicate with them, and this is just one tool. And this is also another thing that we provide parents is that structure, the foundation of how you can have better conversations, not even just around careers, but like just overall, knowing how your
Hmm.
child's brain's working and how your brain's working. And when you understand your strengths and their strengths, and maybe even like, you know, whatever your bottom 4 or 5 are, you can see that better, because what your strengths are going to be different from your child's strengths. Some of them might be similar. So it's really valuable to actually um, have that. So yeah, thank you so much, Brandy. I really appreciate your time. It was a pleasure and it was a really fun conversation. Thank you so much for
It
that.
was. Thank you so much for having me, Yusra. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye bye.
Take care.